less than a week now, we'll know the results to the assembly elections to 4 states and 1 union territory. But this election season has been unlike any other, with the Election Commission's special intensive revision and all the concerns that has brought. You're watching Seema Says, and that's what The Wire's editor, Seema Chishti, will be talking about first today. Seema, what does this election season mean for India's democratic future?
I think a lot, and in a lot of ways, the path that it's going to take in the future is going to be decided by looking at clues as to how these elections are being conducted. There's usually interest in elections as it's been festivalized, there's this dance of democracy and all that. It seems all the cheer has gone away and it's become an attempt to just control areas. And the way that we've seen institutions kind of come together in order to actually prevent all manner of free expression, whether it is the voter, whether it is the ability to campaign, whether it is the ability to stand as a candidate, and whether it is the ability to actually express yourself. Everything seems at severe risk. And I think the election in West Bengal really has brought a focus on this. So many terms have been invented. The lexicon of the Election Commission has expanded to include things like logical discrepancy and various things which are not applied in an SIR, a special intensive revision, that by definition should have been uniform across the country. Forget the 91 lakh who have been denied the right to vote, who've been knocked off the electoral rolls. I'm willing to believe that a lot of those are genuine knockouts. Amidst those who are missing, who don't turn up, who are deleted, the voters list may have been inflated a bit, they're out, a lot of those people. But the figure of 27 lakh, the people whom the Election Commission and the Supreme Court is acknowledging to be in the grey area. Tribunals have been set up and they're meant to review these people's right to vote. How is it okay to do an election when so many people, lakhs of them, continue to be in the grey area? And I was struck by what Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi said on a show with Kapil Sibal when asked about a judge's remarks on this, saying, never mind these people. If they can't vote now, they should vote next time. He equated it to a Marie Antoinette way of looking at things, that you don't have bread, fine, you just have cake in the distance. So I think that's really troubling. Something else that political scientist Gilles Vernier brought to focus was Pippa Norris's way of looking at integrity of elections. And if you just look at that framework, we realize how completely compromised it is at several levels. Pippa Norris, the political scientist, argues that it's not just election results. It's not like an event thing, the sanctity of elections. She puts out an 11-point kind of metrics, and all of them, or rather each one of them, is something in which people need to have trust. And that's the only thing that establishes whether elections are free and fair. And it starts with the drawing of boundaries for polls, the conduct of campaigns, and eventually the counting and the declaration of the results. Each stage needs to have the trust of the people. And we saw this delimitation kind of debate earlier, where the government, the executive, accorded to itself things that the Delimitation Commission should be doing and tried to rush a process which should have changed the entire political map of India. So whether it is drawing of constituencies, in the way the Election Commission is behaving and assuming things about deciding who a citizen of India is, whereas Article 324 does not give the Election Commission the right to decide that. Those are rules that have to be made by the Home Ministry and issue a set of documents which are recognized as legit documents. So that is under question, the shrinking of the electorate, and then the absolutely unaccounted for, or rather the extreme number of paramilitaries who are there. Paramilitaries pulled from the extremely troubled state of Manipur to be in Bengal. And by one estimate, the total number of paramilitary forces used in 2024, about a half of them are only now being deployed in Bengal. Home Minister Amit Shah is camping there for 2 weeks. He goes on to say that the forces will be here for 60 days. And then the DGP of Bengal, of Calcutta, who was appointed by the Election Commission, has just got an extension by 6 months, 2 days before polls. So the whole environment seems to be one of pushing, nudging, and it seems almost as if the Union of India is contesting this election on behalf of the political parties that run the center. So all in all, it's like very disturbing, and it's a very grim sign for the times to come.
Yeah. Next, the crisis in West Asia is continuing, and one of the things it has done is brought focus on India's strategic oil reserves or lack thereof. Should the energy crisis be hitting us this hard?
It probably will. So, it shouldn't be, because we've heard of what China has done, what Japan has done, and they've been planning this for a while. So, at one level is, of course, going green. That's one way of becoming more independent, the renewable course. But even apart from the renewable course, if oil is a must have, then there should be an arrangement for the amount of oil you keep in reserves. And it seems as if India's track record starting from 2016 has not been brilliant at keeping oil, and our reserves we really live hand to mouth. So I believe China has 1 million barrels or something going, which can keep them going for a fair number of months, well, to ride out the storm. India hasn't done very much. And where it's not just a question of a governance issue of Visakhapatnam or Pandur, or where our strategic reserves ought to be in not having been built, but we've surrendered our energy choices to the American strategic map very clearly, whether it is Venezuela, of agreeing to stop purchase when Maduro's government is around, then resuming purchase when America flips the switch, and then stop buying Iranian crude, which is a far sweeter crude, which our refineries are tuned to refining. It was a very suitable crude for us. We stopped doing that because sanctions were on, and we followed that. Russian oil, we stopped doing it when the executive order by the United States was issued. Then it'll say yes or no. So over the past couple of years, 7 or 8 years, India has surrendered its strategic autonomy, which it was ironically enough tom-tomming on the other side. But by ceding choices, energy choices, it's a very crucial strategic thing that you've kind of let go. So it's quite scary about the kind of situation it could put India in, because as you know, it's not just oil, it's LPG, it's gas, and it's not just oil. That means food, it means fertilizers, it means, as people said, even fizzy drink cans. So it affects you in all kinds of ways, in ways that will be very hard for a large country to look for quick substitutes. It's not as if we're a small country, so we can be assisted in a hurry by another country.
Yeah. And there's this software company Palantir, and they've recently issued a manifesto on X that seems to be getting a lot of traction. So what is going on there?
I just like the fact that all AI companies have now swallowed the truth serum and they're giving the game away. So I think this constant kind of these confessionals that they're having in public should really serve to warn people who otherwise completely buy the Kool-Aid that they serve. So the war has been very clarifying, and the kind of involvement of big tech, the same big tech that powers our data stuff that we rely on, that we surrender all our data to willingly, is actually using all this, feeding all this to meet larger objectives for the United States of America. But that's always been a very long-winded argument to make and convince people. But Palantir walks in. The CEO of Palantir had written a book last year, something about the technological something it's called. And he decided to do a summary of the book, possibly done by AI, this year, and put out 22 points, which he termed the Manifesto. And the points are horrendous, to be polite about it. And as somebody said, it's as subtle as wearing a MAGA hat. So when you have a company like Palantir, which is embedded in NHS, it is embedded in all manner of things, in a lot of systems that people use globally, strategic things with health, with other people's sort of defense, with cars, with other technology that they are in, because they're really big. And you realize that their worldview is about allowing America to sort of rule the world. And they say it in not so many words. And point 22 is really staggeringly ghastly. It says we must break away from the vacuity or the hollow pluralism of the past. So on grounds of pluralism, of looking at the world from an American point of view, on all scores, they come out as if that is a natural view, that is the natural state of the world, and all of us need to just feed that kind of idea and committing to that in a manifesto. So I hope people wake up finally and figure out what Palantir and Peter Thiel are about.
Okay, finally, I know you've been itching to talk about this. Is it true that you sitting in Delhi might not be able to watch the 2026 FIFA World Cup?
You too, Jahnavi, will not be able to watch it.
That's the only thing stopping me, definitely. Yes.
we will be bleary-eyed trying to watch loads of some streaming site we hope pirated, which turns up. But it's surprising that despite FIFA lowering the price for Indian broadcasters from $100 million, which allowed them to telecast 2 World Cups and stream them, they brought it down to $35 million, and even now there are no takers. So Jio Hotstar, a lot of other Sony, Z, all that were big players in this over the years, but we've just not We don't have anybody who's willing to telecast this, and it starts in June. It tells us like a lot of things. One, of course, it tells us as to how messed up the whole football viewing and telecasting game is, because as we know globally, that's a very expensive package of cable TV and satellite TV, and few homes have them. So that, therefore, you have pubs and other public places that hold it as a draw that we're screening the football. So it's difficult. I think here, because it's at an inconvenient time, it's late night, so they reckon that they won't have advertising. And then the way the advertising works around cricket is between overs and in the drinks interval, there's lots of space for ads. That's not there in like a short burst of a game, football. So I think the advertising is not working. But there's also a good side. So for those of you who are very happy that we won't be able to watch and Schadenfreude and all that, may I remind you that 28 years ago, it was only Doordarshan, which is mandated, which has to air at least the big games, the big eliminations and the finals. And they last aired it in 1998. So we may have a return to Doordarshan and be able to see it for free. But it's still, I think it's a mess that this is happening. And the conspiracy theorists would tell you that it's also because of the Indian Super League that we've messed up the domestic football thing, that there's the very natural love for football which is there in the country, which should have been encouraged. It's a true working class game, so popular otherwise. I think because maybe cricket competes with it, so they don't want it to get too popular. It was getting a life, like a lot of kids who may not have seen these teams, etc., watch the English Premier League, they watch the other games, FC Barcelona, all of that is like, they love that. Real Madrid, they have a view on that. So maybe it was just becoming a little too popular, and but that's the conspiracist view. I'm inclined to believe that there's a lot of other financial reasons why our big broadcasters are hoping that it'll come down more, and maybe a deal is struck. But if it's not, then we hope that Doordarshan will at least screen the big matches.
Okay, and to close, what recommendations do you have for me and our viewers today?
Yeah, I just saw a very nice video this morning actually, was Diljit Dosanjh on this show, The Tonight Show. So he's extremely cool. He's in full black with a bit of silver and doing a very nice bhangra. And he gets the host to do some bhangra too. So maybe we can put that in the show notes. And the second is a very nice Substack by Saryu Pani, who looks at the accession of the state of Mysore to India. And through that lens, Saryu looks at what it tells us about the imagination of India today. Because while it's all very well to talk about India having been formed out of 550 kind of princely states as a very automatic thing, there was an offer that India held out as to what it meant, not just as a civic idea, as a market idea, as a larger idea, but just in terms of why people of distinct differences, pluralities, plural identities wanted to join in, and how much of that we may have lost. So it's a great piece. It's a dip into history, and also a great sense of reading about the present too. Your recommendations?
My recommendation is a conversation between the poet and translator and rights activist Anita Bharti and the filmmaker Shabani Hassanwalia. It was organized by Zuban and held in Delhi, but there's a video of it that we published on our YouTube channel, and it's about why Anita Bharti believes love is so essential when it comes to tackling social hierarchies. She's talking about caste and ending caste discrimination, and it's like a really lovely and interesting conversation.
Wow.
That's all for today, and Seema will be back soon with more things to say. Thank you.